الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Welcome to this series of Friday sermon discussions brought to you by Majlis Khudam MKA UK Tarbiyyat Department on the Friday sermons delivered by Hazrat Ameerul Momineen Taalay bin Aziz. I'm pleased to be joined by Murabbi Silsila Hamaya Jahangir Khan Sahab. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you, Hamaya Sahab.
Wa alaikum salam, Qasim Sahab. Good to be here again.
Jazakallah for joining us. We're pleased to have you as well. Hamaya Sahab, take it away and talk us through this most recent sermon.
So, so firstly, I just want to say that I feel incredibly unworthy of talking on this one in particular, because it was a Friday sermon that no one should forget. And if anyone didn't get to listen to it, I urge everyone to go back and watch the whole thing and listen to this Friday sermon in particular, as well as all other ones as well. But why this one was so important? Why did this one struck the hearts of people young and old? It's because Huzoor related was a farewell speech of a great sincere friend of ours, a beloved brother, Syed Ahmed. May his soul rest in peace, who recently was martyred. And our hearts and our prayers go out to the family of Syed Ahmed. Was a great friend of ours. He was a Waqf Zindagi, and Huzoor started off the Friday sermon about talking about the incident of what happened, and it was so beautifully described. It was like a father talking about his son, and you could feel the pain in the voice of Huzoor, and just the way Huzoor would address Taalay by saying, my pyare Taalay, my beloved Taalay, and just to hear those words, from the word of the man who is closest to God, it really shows us what relationship Huzoor had with him, and we could see that this relationship was something which was right from the beginning. I think Huzoor even said in his Friday sermon that Taalay was someone who would always come to my classes ever since he was a young boy. So he really felt the loss, and we could sense through his voice how much Huzoor was hurt by this. I think from this discussion, I think we should look at it from a Khudam's perspective, because Taalay was only 31, but for Huzoor to give a whole Friday sermon on him, it shows us how much he achieved in his life, and so we should also try to inculcate all of the good qualities that Huzoor mentioned in this Friday sermon. So as I said, it's impossible to mention all of those now. So we'll just highlight a few of them. And I do remember a few years back when another good friend of mine who also passed away, Raza Salim, in that Friday sermon as well, Huzoor mentioned that to honor his death, all of his friends, all the people that know him, should try and fulfill their pledge, just like Raza did, by inculcating all of his good qualities. So in the same way, all the good qualities that were mentioned by beloved Huzoor in this Friday sermon, we should all try to dissect them and see where we can improve our lives as well. So as I said, as young Khudam, as people who are always striving, in our work, in our spirituality, we're always trying to gain the pleasure of Allah, and this should be the sole focus of our life. And what Taalay always did, and what he always put forward before anything, was his love for Khilafat. And so that means that we should try our best to develop our love for Khilafat, and always pray to Allah that Allah opens doors for us, that we are able to physically and also spiritually develop our relationship to Khilafat. And this was what Taalay's whole life was about. Right up until his last breath, Huzoor mentioned that his last words were, I love my Khalifa, I love my family. These words should always spring into our minds all the time, about if we ever do leave this world, how has our relationship been with with Allah? How's our relationship been with our Khalifa? And how's our relationship been with our family? So it's very, very important to always remember that. And for a young person, 31 years old, always remember, how old he was and for how much he achieved. One thing which, for me, I think, which really struck me was um, the poem that he wrote. And as we mentioned about it, that he wrote a poem and he gave it to his friend and said, keep this with you and don't tell anyone. Um, but it was almost like a secret that had to be told after he passed away. And this also showed his humbleness and humility, that he had this secret love for Huzoor that he didn't show anyone ever. But now, after he has left this world, all the people that have come together, we all realize now how much love he had for Huzoor. And the way that poem ended, I remember I was listening to it, and it really made me very emotional. That he said, "I love my Khalifa, but he will never know." And just the way Huzoor, used that line and almost addressed him as he was standing there, and said, "Oh, my beloved Taalay, I do love you also." In that way, it was like a perfect ending to that poem, an unwritten ending to that poem written by or said by Huzoor. What are the things that we can inculcate? I think one of his great qualities was his love for the beloved, the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I think this is something which is God-given as well, but something that can be developed, which means that we must always try to learn about the life of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. As a parent myself, I always see how I can always develop myself and how I can, morally train my children. And I learned one thing which was mentioned about Taalay was about how when he used to put his kids to sleep, he would always say stories about the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And he was very, articulate about it. He knew, the insides of the stories off the top of his head. And he had such love for the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that his beloved wife mentioned that whenever he used to narrate any story, he himself would weep so much due to how much love he had for our beloved master, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that is definitely something which we should try to work on. Read the books of the Promised Messiah والسلام, of the Jamaat about the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, which will inculcate that love for him. And also, his passion for the Jamaat. One thing which was given to him, I think it was Khalifa Rabi Rahimullah, he was told when he came to live near Fazl Mosque was to read the 5-volume commentary. And in a matter of days, he finished reading that. And I really feel like, that was the start of his life, in terms of that built the base of everything, in terms of, understanding the Quran and always trying to develop his understanding of the Quran. And that again showed his love for the Jamaat, and his Khalifa instructed him to do something, and he went about and did it. As we mentioned, something which was so beautiful, he said that Taalay was that kind of person that was just, like someone just waiting for instructions, waiting for Zuru to say something so that he can, inculcate that into himself. And one of those things was, which wasn't even directed to him, which was the amazing thing, in one of the virtual mulaqats to Germany Jami students, and he told them that, Jami students or murabbis should be doing tahajjud 1 hour a day. And as Huzoor narrates it, he said that once Taalay came to the office very, very tired, and his friends who were missionaries asked him, why are you so tired? And he said that, Huzoor addressed the Jami students of Germany and said to them that they should read 1 hour of tahajjud. And I took that upon myself, and I saw that Huzoor is addressing me, and I should be the one doing that as well, because I have also given my life for the Jamaat. So that's, we all know how difficult that is, just to wake up, even, wake up on time for Fajr, let alone read Tahajjud for that amount of time. So we should always try to develop ourselves. We're all already reading the 5 daily prayers, but Taalay took it to the next level of seeing how we can develop it even further. And it's all due to the obedience and the love of Khilafat. And, that is the whole embodiment of Taalay's life, was he loved his Khalifa so much that he would do whatever he needed to do to attain his love. And that is something which we can all take from his life. And you know, people were saying, what did he leave behind? And I definitely echo this, is he opened so many doors to the whole world for people to see Huzoor in a different light, in a light where we haven't seen him before. The most that the whole world would probably get out of Huzoor on a collective level is watching his Friday sermons. But now we have the opportunity of every single week seeing what Huzoor gets up to throughout the week, and seeing who he connects with in the world and what kind of activities he does, so that we can understand just what, you know, a small part of the routine of our beloved Huzoor. And this was encapsulated in the, you know, the documentaries and the episodes of this week with Huzoor. Huzoor mentioned this again in the Friday sermon, that this was an initiative of this young boy, of this, you know, of Taalay, who had all of these bright ideas. But really, this was his way of trying to get closer to Huzoor as well. So really, him getting closer and being in Huzoor's Mulakat office, and you know, recording all of these stories, it was actually, we were all connected through him to Khilafat. And you know, what greater honor would you want other than that? So we have a lot to thank for him. And you know, the way Huzoor finished his Friday sermon as well is that we should all remember him in our prayers and remember his family in our prayers as well, because the service that he's done for the Jamaat right up until his last breath is something which every single person can learn from. And we've seen, you know, all over social media and all the people that have spoken out how they've been affected by this loss. It's all been positive. It's all been, it pleases every single person that Taalay gave his life for the Jamaat. And even, you know, Huzoor narrated about how he didn't even have any concern for himself throughout his whole life, but especially in those last moments, he wanted to protect his laptop. He wanted to protect all the work that he did, because this was for the Jamaat, and this was upon the instruction of beloved Huzoor. So I myself, as a khadim, I'm emotionally very touched by it, and I will always try to aspire to be like him, to learn from his great qualities. And as I said, there are so many more qualities which, you know, every incident which is all mentioned, one of them may touch you. One of them may be something that you think, wow, I think this is something that I can really learn from and I can really improve. So I guess the last message would be that all of us, we should always analyze ourselves and try to fulfill our pledge that we always do whenever we go to any khudam, ijtima, or any khudam event. We make so many promises, but Taalay was one of those that fulfilled his promise. And Huzoor, as he mentioned, he said that Taalay was a diamond that has departed from this world. And he was truly a diamond, and a gem, and someone who we should always cherish in our minds, and always learn from, and never ever we should forget all of the services that he's done for the Jamaat, and we should always try to aspire to copy and inculcate his qualities within us. And may Allah Ta'ala enable us to do so, inshallah.
Ameen. Jazakallah Hamad for giving us such a succinct summary of that Friday sermon delivered by Hazrat Ameerul Momineen. I guess a couple of points that really resonated with me, first of which was the fact that Sayyid Taalay Ahmed was one of our own. He was a very active khadim in Majlis Khudam al-Ahmadiyya UK. Huzoor even mentioned a couple of his roles, even locally and at a national level. And he was a role model, as you said. The age that he was an age very similar to us guys. Very similar to Matt, but both of us sat here talking about his life. And so if someone at this age can achieve so many things, then it just gives us the opportunity to also reach those extreme limits that was in our capabilities to do so. And secondly, was the honor that was bestowed upon him because of all his hard work, because of all his sacrifices, because of his zeal and vigor to actually do so much work for the Jamaat. That honor bestowed upon him by Hazrat Ameerul Momineen, who dedicated a whole Friday sermon to him in such powerful words. And as you mentioned as well, in the way that Huzoor has done it, is something that inshallah will live on as a tribute for him, for his family, and for all of us that knew him as well. And may Allah enable us, like you've said, to really inculcate those qualities that he left behind, and that inspiration that he was for us. As the regular viewers of this program will know, we finish with extracts of the Friday sermon delivered by Hazrat Ameerul Momineen. So let's end this program with some of those extracts now.
شاید 2-3 سال پہلے اس نے ایک نظم لکھی تھی جو اس نے اپنے کسی دوست کو دی تھی کہ اپنے پاس رکھ لو اور کسی کو نہیں دکھانی، جو خلافت سے تعلق اور پیار سے متعلق لکھی ہوئی تھی. اور اس نے شروع ہی اس طرح کیا تھا کہ میں خلیفہ وقت سے سب سے زیادہ پیار کرتا ہوں، اور ختم اس طرح کیا تھا کہ خلیفہ وقت سے جو مجھے پیار ہے اور محبت ہے وہ انہیں کبھی پتہ نہیں چلے گی، لیکن اے پیارے تارے، میں تمہیں بتاتا ہوں کہ تمہارے ان آخری الفاظ سے پہلے بھی مجھے پتہ تھا کہ تمہیں خلافت سے پیار اور محبت کا تعلق تھا. تمہارے ہر عمل سے، ہر حرکت و سکون سے، جب تمہارے ہاتھ میں کیمرہ ہوتا تھا اور میں سامنے ہوتا تھا تب بھی، اور جب تم کیمرے کے علاوہ ملتے تھے، چاہے ذاتی ملاقات ہو یا دفتر کے کام سے، تمہاری آنکھوں کی چمک سے اس محبت کا اظہار ہوتا تھا. تمہارے چہرے کی ایک عجیب قسم کی رونق سے اس محبت کا اظہار ہوتا تھا. غرض کہ ہر طرح تمہارے ہر عمل سے یہ لگ رہا ہوتا تھا کہ کس طرح تم اس محبت کا اظہار کرو جو تمہیں خلیفہ وقت سے ہے. مجھے شاید ہی کسی میں اس محبت کا اظہار نظر آتا ہو. حضرت خلیفہ مسیح رابع رحمہ اللہ تعالیٰ کی تدفین کے وقت جب میں قبر کے سرانے کھڑا تھا مٹی ڈالنے سے پہلے، تو میرے دائیں طرف آ کر کھڑا ہو گیا. میں نہیں جانتا تھا کہ کون کھڑا ہے. اب تصویر دیکھی تو پھر مجھے اندازہ ہوا کہ کون تھا اور کیا موقع تھا. لیکن اس 13 سالہ بچے نے شاید اس وقت یہ عہد کیا تھا کہ میں وقف نو ہوں اور اب میں نے خلیفہ وقت کا مددگار بننا ہے، دست راست بننا ہے. اور پھر اس نے سالوں بعد اپنی تعلیم مکمل کر کے اس عہد کو پورا کیا اور نبھایا، اور خوب نبھایا. جرنلزم میں بھی اس نے میرے مشورے سے داخلہ لیا تھا اور پھر تعلیم مکمل کی، اور شہید ہو کر بتا گیا کہ میں خلافت کا حقیقی مددگار بنا ہوں. اے پیارے تالے، میں گواہی دیتا ہوں کہ یقیناً تم نے اپنے وقف اور عہد کے اعلیٰ ترین معیاروں کو حاصل کر لیا. اللہ تعالیٰ اس کے بیوی بچوں کو بھی حافظ و ناصر ہو اور صبر اور حوصلہ دے انہیں. اس کے ماں باپ اور بہن بھائیوں کو بھی صبر اور حوصلہ دے، اور اس کی بہن بھائیوں میں بھی، اس کی اولاد میں بھی اس کی نیکیوں کو جاری رکھنے کی توفیق دے.